I would like to share the story Dandelions with you today, written by Eve Bunting and illustrated by Greg Shedd. What do we do, readers, when we start a story? We read the title, we look at the pictures, and let's make some predictions about what you think the story might be about. Okay, dandelions. First of all, do you know what a dandelion is? Dandelions are those weeds that grow out in the grass. You can see them on the playground, maybe in your yard at home. You get those yellow looking weeds, the big green leaves on them. And then if you look at the picture, you see two oxen pulling a wagon. And the people, look how they're dressed. I don't think this story takes place today. I think this story might take place in the 1800s, during the pioneer time. Well, let's start our story. Okay. There you go. You can see the prairie, some dandelion flowers. We came to Nebraska Territory in the spring. Our oxen, Brownie and Blackie, pulled the wagon, and our cow, Moo, was tied on behind. It was a long way from my grandparents' home in Illinois. A long, long way. Papa laughed and sang. Look at it, Emma, he said to Mama. Miles and miles of free land. But it's so lonely, Mama said. What do we learn from reading this page? Pictures. What does the text tell us? It tells us the time of year. It's in spring. If you look at the first sentence, and they're in the Nebraska Territory. So I know we're talking about the pioneer times because it's not a state. And we got oxen pulling a wagon. And we found out some of the characters already too, didn't you? Got Papa and his wife Emma. And I bet you can guess why they're heading out west. If you said free land, you're right. They're going out to get their free land. We won't be lonely, Papa promised. We have each other. And girls. In the fall, there'll be a new baby. His voice sounded almost holy. A new baby in a new land. My little sister Rebecca put her mouth close to my ear. Where are the trees, Zoe? We'll come to some, I said. We did, but not many. Remember, they're on a prairie. That's a flat land, and there's really not many trees on a prairie. There's Moo. Day after day, we trundled along, our wagon wheels making their own tracks through the tall grass. Trundled along. What does that mean? Day after day we trundled along. What do you think? Yes, let's see. Day after day we moved along. I think that would be what it means. And if I put it in there, it works. See how the grass closes behind us, Mama asked. It's as if we'd never been. We cook our meals outside the wagon and slept on Mama's quilts spread on the ground. Papa told us the names of the stars and about the moon, how it rose and set, and how the moon and the stars were the same ones that shone over Grandma and Grandpa's house, the very ones we used to see through our bedroom window. When he told us that, I cried a little, but I didn't let Rebecca see. The sound of the wind in the grass was like the sound of the rivers we'd never known back home. Day and night the sound was in our ears. Sometimes we came to real rivers, and when we did, we washed ourselves and topped up our water kegs. Water kegs, what does that mean? If you guessed, it's a container to probably keep their water. I think you're right. Sometimes in a river was easy to cross and sometimes hard, with Brownie and Blackie so frightened as they swam, and us holding on to them and to the wagon too. Sometimes we even had to cross on a ferry pulled by ropes. It had been weeks since we started our journey, 12 miles a day, if we were lucky. One day we did 17. Then, on a morning when the roar of the grass seemed quieter, Papa jumped down from the wagon and shouted, "We're here!" It looked no different from any of the land we'd crossed already. "How do you know this is ours?" I asked. Papa showed me a wooden sign with our name, Bolton, on them. He pulled one from the ground and waved it around. "See? My claim stake. I planted it here when I came last spring." He held the sign high and raised his face to the sky. "We're here," he called again. I thought maybe this time he was calling to God. Look at the stake there. A claim stake. What do you think that might be? It's a wooden stake, and it shows you that you actually have the right to something. And in this case, they have the right to that land. It belongs to them. That's where they're going to be homesteaders. I will never forget the way Mama looked as she got down from the wagon and stood in the knee-high grass. She shaded her eyes. "This is where we are to live our lives?" she asked Papa, and her voice was as still as the land around us. "There's no water." Papa smiled. "I told you we'll have to sink a well. The water is below. All we need is a pick and a shovel, and those we brought." So sink a well Have you guessed, boys and girls, what that means? If you said to dig a well, you are right. And what do you think about Mama? How's she feeling? She's asking questions. Think she really wants to live here? Couldn't we live beside the river? Becca asked. I like it by the river. Her lips quivered. Quivered. That's a kind of a big word. What do you think that means? If you said tremble or shake, you're right. All that land is taken, Becca, but we'll do fine here, you'll see. He put a hand on Mama's shoulder. After the well is sunk, we'll put in the crops. It's almost past seeding time. And then we'll start on our house. He slipped his arm down so it circled her waist. Those neighbors I visited, the Seversons, they are just 3-hour ride farther on. They will advise us, and I'm going to borrow their plow. We will go there before we settle. We started for the Seversons the very next morning. It was hard to see their house. It was so much like the empty land around it. I think we would have missed it if Papa hadn't known exactly where he was going. I don't know how he did know, but Papa is smart. Mrs. Severson came running toward us, and Papa stopped the wagon so Mama could get down. She and Miss Severson met and hugged and cried. Does Mama know her already? I whispered to Papa. No, but they are happy to see each other. It has been a long time since either of them has seen another woman. He sounded sad, but Papa is never sad for long. It will be different soon. Other settlers will come. The ones that will live by the river, Rebecca asked. Those and others. It will be crowded. Although there is the town I told you about, only a day's ride from here. There will be many towns. I looked around. It was hard to imagine. Come and see our house, Mr. Severson called. It was made of sod, chunks like bricks cut from the ground, and it had one door and one window that Mr. Severson had bought for $1.25 in town. He kept touching the window as if he couldn't believe it was there. The house was called a soddy. In it was a chunk stove they'd brought with them from Minnesota, a bed, a table, and benches. Look at the word soddy. What is a soddy? What does the text tell us? Yep, you said it was their house, and it's made of sod, which are chunks of ground with like grass on top of it. This is the inside of the soddy, the window that he bought. They also had 5 boys and a pig that they kept in a pit, and a canary they kept in a cage. Becca and I liked the pig and the canary. The Seversons shared their dinner with us, Mamma admired the beautiful tablecloth that was spread on the table. Her fingers traced the flowers. "Roses," she said. "Remember the way they smell?" "I remember," Mrs. Severson said. Bits of earth kept falling from the roof as we ate, and Mrs. Severson kept picking them off the table. Twice black beetles fell too. "You get used to it," she said. Once a snake this big dropped. One of the boys spread his arms wide and leered at Rebecca and me. What does that mean? I think I'm going to read a little bit more of the text, see if I can figure this out. I guess we were supposed to faint. We didn't. What are these boys doing? Are they trying to make the girls afraid? Are they trying to get a reaction out of the girls? Maybe your brothers or sisters at home say things to you to try to get you to be afraid or to just get a rise out of you. The canary sang a little song, and we all turned to look at it. "I miss the songbirds," Mrs. Severson said. There are so few here." Mr. Severson got me the canary. "Its song is sweet," Mamma said. "So sweet." I think it was tears that made her eyes shine. What's happening here? What do you think? What do you think Mama is feeling? Thinking that she's feeling kind of sad and maybe thinking about back home? You know how I figured that out? It says that there were tears that made her eyes shine. I think she's feeling kind of sad. We stayed over that night, Mama and Papa sleeping on the floor inside the sadi, all of us children outside. "Are you girls afraid of mice?" the middle boy asked. "There are millions of them. They run over you. They'll probably nest in your hair." "Rebecca and I like mice," I told him. We pointed out the stars and told the boys their names, Castor and Pollux and Leo the lion to the east. But they laughed their horrible hooting laughs and said we were making it up. Only people and animals had names, they said. We left early next morning, the plow in the wagon, our water kegs refilled. You can see a picture of the plow. Mr. Severson gave Papa a tree branch to use as a ridge pole for our house and 2 forked tree limbs from the river that would help hold the sod on our roof. He and Papa talked about how it would be done, and Mr. Severson said he'd come lend a hand. Lend a hand. Lend a hand. What do you think that means? Mr. Severson might come and help him, yes. There's another word in there too. The first sentence, ridge pole. You know what a ridge pole is? A ridge pole is actually that piece of wood